busy. I don't ever smoke the dizzy, but we can always share some ditsies. It's just a cup in time. This song doesn't have to run. Life's all of us, not every moment we can be feeling fine. I wanna share a moment, just a second if you will, maybe even a cup of thrill. We could share this performance. It's tea time, come sit with me.
Well, welcome guys. Miss Liz is back, and we had an incredible afternoon with Roberta Samuel. We talked about art and France and all that good stuff, so check that tea time out. It will be posted later on tonight. Tonight we have an incredible guest. We have two people. Well, we have a partnership here, teammates here. We have Chris Bingham and Tambu is in the house. So we are going to be talking about Chris's tea as well. And Chris's tea is mission to support retired working dogs with no safety nets, bond between handler and his partner, and keep moving when everything is stacked against you. So that is the tea we are going to be talking about, and we're going to talk about some books. We're going to talk about Tambu's life and partnership and all that good stuff. But before we get started, you guys are going to get over to all those platforms, like them: Facebook, TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Alignable, Lemonade, Clapper, all those good platforms. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe. And if you see the guests that are on those platforms, give them a follow as well, because that's how we support one another. Jump over to the podcast apps: Podbean, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, Deezer, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other ones that are out there. Give those a like, follow, and subscribe as well. And get these tea times out there, because they do make a difference for the guests and for listening audience that resonate with the stories. Also, jump over to babyboomers.org. Miss Liz has been partnered with them for almost 4 years. And if you're looking to be featured on other podcasts, they have over 50 plus podcasts that are always looking for guests. So you can pitch yourself over there as well. So let's get started with disclaimer and then a beautiful intro. And then we're going to get Chris in here and we're going to have some fun with all of you guys tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz's Tea Time is a global platform dedicating to sharing real life stories, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations that inspire awareness, healing, and connection. I'm Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment during the live broadcast, please grant StreamYard permission to display your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that all the content brought forward during any Tea Time show is presented in good faith. However, discussions may include opinions, beliefs, and perspectives that do not necessarily represent the views of Miss Liz or the Tea Time platform. Information shared by guests is based on their own experiences and is perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All guests, viewers, and participants are responsible for using their own good judgment when considering any action or decision that may relate to these discussions. Some episodes may cover sensitive topics, including but not limited to trauma, abuse, grief, mental health, and other emotionally triggering subjects. Listeners' and viewers' discretion is strongly advised. Tea Time with Miss Liz is an open discussion forum designed to offer insight, inspire awareness, and create connection. It is not a substitute for professional, medical, legal, or therapeutical advice. If you require professional support, please seek assistance from qualified professionals or trusted resources in your area. If you have any questions regarding this disclaimer or the content of the discussion, you are welcome to contact me, aka Miss Liz, directly at my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com, or check out my link tree at Miss Liz's Tea Time. By choosing to participate in, comment on, or view these live shows, you acknowledge and accept this disclaimer. Your participation is entirely voluntary. I, Miss Liz, welcomes you to join the conversation with an open heart, and if at any time you feel this platform is not right for you, I respect your wishes and decision and welcome you back whenever you are ready. Tea Time at Miss Liz is serving truth and awareness one cup at a time. Well, welcome to Tea Time with Miss Liz, where every conversation reminds us that courage can arrive in many forms, sometimes on 2 legs, sometimes on 4 paws, and sometimes through a bond that refuses to give up. Today we are honored to welcome Chris Bingham, Federal Law Enforcement Officer, former K-9 handler, author, father, storyteller, and advocate for retired working dogs. Joining Chris' remarkable story is his retired explosive detection K-9 partner, Tambu, whose courage and resilience have inspired thousands. Chris has devoted more than 2 decades to federal law enforcement. During that journey, he served alongside Tambu, developing the kind of partnership that goes far beyond a handler and working dog. It is built on trust, communication, service, and loyalty, and an extraordinary understanding between two partners whose lives depend on one another. Then Tambu faced a battle no amount of training could prepare them for. After receiving terminal cancer diagnosis, Tambu defied the odds, continuing to inspire people with his strength, determination, and unremarkable will to keep going. Their story has reached audience nationally, including recognition by the Philadelphia Eagles during Sunday Night Football, as well as appearances across more than 20 podcasts and major media platforms. Chris has carried that story into his children's book, K9 Tambu, introducing younger readers to service, courage, perseverance, and the incredible work of the K9 team. He is also developing his adult memoir, Defining the Odds, which will take readers even deeper into their journey. Beyond the uniform, Chris advocates for retired working dogs through Project K9 Hero, helping bring awareness to the animals who spent their lives serving and the responsibilities we carry to support them when their working years are over. Today we'll explore the extraordinary partnership between Chris and Tambu, life as a federal law enforcement K9 handler, what working dogs teach us about trust and loyalty, Tambu's remarkable battle with cancer, the story behind K9 Tambu, the upcoming memoir Defying the Odds, advocating for retiring working dogs, and what it truly means to never quit. Chris and Tambu remind us that resilience is not always about knowing how the story will end. Sometimes it's simply waking up, choosing courage, and giving life's every day everything you have for one more day. So grab your favorite cup and join us for a powerful conversation filled with service, loyalty, resilience, friendship, and real life tea, truth, experience, and awareness. And let me get Chris in here and Tambu, and there is definitely a special seat waiting for you too. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, how you doing? I was hoping Tambo would still stay still and not jump off the couch. He has a habit of when I do these, he disappears. So he's sitting here sitting with me right now, and now he's about to probably jump off. There he goes. So
Well, I'm sure he'll pop in and out during
yeah,
the show.
yeah.
So, Chris, tell us a little bit before we get into your story with you and Tambu. Who were you as a little guy, and who are you now?
So growing up, I talk about a lot in the interviews. I kind of grew up without my dad. My dad left when I was young, so I always say, I lost my first best friend before, I could even walk or crawl, and that has an effect on guys. Growing up without their dad, it's like you're always questioning, whether you're good enough, and for me, I kind of you know had this armor up, right, that I kind of put up, and didn't always let people in. So I kept a small circle, growing up with my mom and my sister, and we kind of made it work. But it took me a while to kind of find some direction in life before I found law enforcement.
So, how old were you when you got into law enforcement?
I was 23 years old, and I'd gone from a lot of jobs, and you know, um, I just really couldn't find anything that I was passionate about. And I had taken some courses at the local community college, and I took a criminal justice class, and really kind of fell in love with it. And for the first time, I kind of really felt some passion. So I kind of knew right then and there that's what I wanted to go into. So around 23 years old, I joined my first department, and it was great. I got to work in their narcotics unit right off the bat as a young guy, and I learned a lot about being a police officer, and just kind of learning the ropes of law enforcement. So it was a really great way to start my career.
And you've been in law enforcement for 20 years?
Almost 25 years now. I'm probably aging myself a little bit, but yeah, 25 years. I don't know where all the time went, and 18 almost 18 of those years have been spent with canines. So Tambo's actually my third dog. I've retired, three in total. And kind of the story is that I had, two working canines, and they retired, and life was good. I had moved on to some leadership positions, and then both of them got cancer in retirement within a year of each other, and passed away within 11 months of each other, which gutted me because these working dogs, they become a part of you. They're your family. I always call them the security blanket for me. They're there with you through the hardest times in life. So not only losing one but losing the other was something that I've never gotten over, and it takes a piece of you when they pass away.
So all your working dogs have gotten cancer?
Yeah, yeah, all three of them. Tambo now with his cancer diagnosis, and it's not uncommon for older dogs to develop cancer, later in life. But yeah, it was pretty crazy that Rex, my first dog, was 14, and his was kind of a slow progression, and we're able to get some time with him. And then my second dog, Tina, hers came out of nowhere and was extremely aggressive. Rex, I kind of knew when it was his time, and I got my last day with him where I could, take him around to all his favorite places and stuff like that, and have that final his favorite beach, and have that final moment with him. Where Tina, hers was so aggressive, I had to make a decision for her, so where she wasn't suffering. So I really didn't get that time with her at the end that I needed, and it was just tough with both of them going within the same time. And after they passed, I told myself that, as much as I love canine, I can never go through that pain again of losing a canine partner. So, I moved on to some other positions, and, I didn't think I was going to end up coming back to canine, but, life's funny like that. And, once a canine handler, always a canine handler. And it kind of called me back.
Well, we got a question that came in from Clayton, and it's what was your very first impression of Tambu when you became partners?
That's a great question. So the story on Tambo is that he was never aggressive. He was just a dog that couldn't bond with anybody, right? He was a great working dog, very independent, but he was just kind of aloof. And people, when they get these canines, they want this instant bond with them, right? So the first handler just couldn't really handle him. He was too stubborn for them. And then the second handler, I think, over a period of time, it just wasn't there wasn't any connection, and he left the unit and just left Tambo. So Tambo was sitting in the kennel for a while. And when I came back to run the unit, they weren't going to give me a dog. And so I would banter back and forth with my boss for, a year or so, asking, hey, can I get a dog? And the answer was always no. And then finally, I asked, and I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to go out to the vendor. I'm going to pick this new dog out. And then I kind of got the take it or leave it deal with Tambo. And, Tambo and I were like two passing ships on the night on the unit. And I remember going to get him out of the kennel that first day. And I'm looking at him through the kennel, and he's looking at me, and something hit me. I saw something familiar. I saw myself. And what I mean by that is that Tambo, a dog that can't is aloof, guarded, stubborn, and these are all the same labels that I had throughout my entire life, right? I kept my guard up, didn't want to let people in. So I saw something familiar, and then I realized he just needs consistency and somebody to take a chance on him. And that's always been the roadmap to, getting to know me is consistency, and then, taking time to develop relationships and stuff like that, and building trust. So I knew right then and there that this was something meant to be, and I knew what the roadmap was to earn his trust. So it was a pretty cool moment.
Well, we have a question here from Johnny, and it is how long did it take for you and Tambu to develop the level of trust needed to work together?
Yeah, great question. Didn't happen overnight, and I knew that was going to be the case. And as Tambo and I walked out of the kennel the first time, he kind of had a side eye on me. He was kind of doing his own thing, but he was curious about me, and he was like wondering where this was going to lead to. And the key to that, to earning his trust, was just consistency, right? And I think that's the same thing in life, is just showing up every day. So I didn't take him home right away. I showed up every day, same time, fed him his breakfast, took him out. We built a routine and a regimen, and then slowly over time you start to earn his trust. So people have asked me this before, and it's really no like this magnificent moment. It's consistency and showing up, and I think that's with a lot of the things that we do in life, right? Is just being consistent and showing up. And for him, that was everything. because then he learned to trust me. He knew I was going to come back, and that developed into our us working as a team, right? And knowing when he needed me to step in, and me knowing when to let him work. And so it didn't happen overnight. It took a few months, but once we got there, we were rocking and rolling.
So, how are your children with Tambu?
Awesome, awesome. So one of the rumors with Tambo is that he wasn't good with kids, and I had my son late in life, and I remember bringing my son home. It wasn't an instant introduction, but Tambo was very curious, and over time, I let him get closer, but he loves my son. Like when my son was a baby, Tambo would sit by his bassinet, and when my son cried, Tambo would bark, to alert us. So I think Tambo saw my son as an extension of me, and he sensed that, and he's just been, magnificent with my son. He's my son's hero. My son comes down every morning yelling for Tambo, and Tambo loves it. So he's just been wonderful with him.
And how old is Tambo?
Tambo turned 12 in May, so he's 12 years old.
So he's still pretty young.
Yeah, still pretty young, but I mean that's a good age for working dogs too. And I when I talk about working dogs, I kind of always kind of relate them to NFL athletes. They're these prime athletes their career, and they work a lot, and they do this high volume of whether it's patrol work or detection work. And then when they retire, just kind of like NFL athletes, the body starts to break down from all that wear and tear. And that's when these dogs really need that care when they retire, because that's when everything starts to break down. And it's hard sometimes because the mind with the dog is still very strong. The working mentality never leaves them. It's the body that starts to give up on them. But the good thing is that there's programs out there like Project Canine Hero, which came into our life, that sponsor these dogs with significant medical care, and they provide that medical care for life, for these dogs, because once these a lot of these dogs retire, and to no fault to any of the departments, the burden of cost falls on the handler. And I always say that no handler should ever have to make a decision on a dog that have served our country and community based on finances.
So, how long does it take to train a working dog?
It depends. You go out and you buy the dogs based on your mission. So you're looking for that hunt and that drive that you need for your mission. And the dog's gotta have that hunt and drive, especially if you're searching high volume numbers of stuff for detection work. So you got to find the right fit for the dog. Then you got to continue to do the imprintation on odor and all that kind of stuff, and then get up and running with the handler. The handler usually goes to a 3 to 5 week school, and then they come back and train for another few months. So I would say it's a good, 6 month process a lot of times before handlers become operational and go through all the training and stuff like that.
Well, we have a question here from Brandon, and it is, what is one lesson Tambu taught you that has stayed with you throughout your life?
Resilience is that to not when things get hard, it's getting back up and not quitting. I mean, this dog was, people wanted to give up on him, when he first got his cancer diagnosis. It came out of nowhere. He had a large mass rupture on his spleen, and we found him on the floor. He was lifeless, and he was in the process of bleeding out. And we got him over to the ER, and they said, "Look, your dog had a mass rupture on his spleen. His spleen is littered with masses, and he's dying right now. And we don't think he'll make it through the recovery. What do you want to do?" And I looked at him, and his eyes told me he wasn't ready. I was so bonded with this dog, and I said, "No." I said, "What are the options?" And they said, "Well, we can try to remove his spleen and give him a blood transfusion. And oh, by the way, it's going to cost between $10,000 and $12,000." So I called Project Canine Hero up, and the founder, Jason Johnson, said, "Chris, what do you want to do?" And I said, "Jason, he's not ready." And he said, "We got your back." They funded the surgery, and Tambo made it through the surgery and was up up and running within a couple days, and that's the first time, that he really showed what a true, well, he's always showed what a true warrior was, but going through something like that and recovering from it was amazing.
Well, do you want to share with the listeners what happened yesterday with him?
Yeah, so Tambo's been going through active chemotherapy after we had the emergency surgery. We started. He was diagnosed with hemangiosarcoma, which is a very aggressive cancer in dogs. It's known as a silent killer in dogs, and dogs really, it's a very grim lifespan where I'm talking weeks to a month. So he was given 2 weeks to live back in July of 2025. We started our chemo journey back then, and throughout that time, he's continued to beat this cancer now for 14 months. And recently, the cancer did is back, and we started back up on chemo yesterday. And well, couple weeks back, the first session he didn't take very well, and it was harsh on him. But we started on a lower dose yesterday, so we were about 4 hours at the oncology yesterday doing imaging and chemotherapy, and we're going to be doing this every 2 to 3 weeks, and hopefully keep the cancer at bay going forward. But I don't want to dismiss that this dog was given 2 weeks to live and has defied this cancer for almost 14 months, which is unheard of. And along the line is when I really started documenting this journey, and it really started motivating others that were going through hard things in life, that to not quit and to continue to live present in the moment. And I think that's why a lot of people resonate with Tambo and his battle.
Well, Chris, I'm going to pull up the children's book. Tell us a little bit about this book.
Yeah, so I wrote the children's book largely, well, for two reasons. One, I had a son late in life, and I wanted to honor him and give something to him. And as a child growing up, I know what it felt like to feel unseen and scared at times. And I wanted to write a story that children could relate to. So the book is Canine Tambo, and it's about, in the story, Tambo lives in a small town. He gets sick, but in a way for a child to understand, gets medicine to get better. And along the line, he starts inspiring children to not give up and to keep fighting like Tambo does. And the hope was behind that is that, when kids go through scary moments or are sick, is to be like Tambo and continue to never give up. And that was the premises behind it. The back of the book, I have a resource guide for parents and teachers to go over with their children, what they learned.
Absolutely. And I love the way that the book is, because my granddaughter, this is one of her favorite bedtime stories, like I told you before we went live, right?
Hmm.
And she likes the story of Tambu not giving up. And
Yeah.
she's like, Mommy, Nanny, he doesn't give up. And
Yeah,
I
and I,
said,
I and I think that's such an important message for children, to understand, because it's like their brains are developing and they're learning, and sometimes you're learning emotions and being scared about things. And children are I see my son all the time. He's 3.5, and just the pure joy he has every day. It's the pure innocence, and he hasn't been tarnished by life yet. And eventually, everyone has to go through hard times in life, but I'm hoping to kind of instill that never give up attitude for children, and to understand that things can be scary, but you can get through it.
but we have some more questions coming in, and this one's from Ryson. Did working with Tambu change the way you understood leadership and teamwork?
Yeah, I'm really big on leadership, and I'm always trying to continue to get better. I've been in leadership for a long time, but Tambo, he taught me to have more patience, and to kind of live in the present and not look too far ahead, right? And that helped me focus more on the stuff that was in front of me, and focus on being a good leader. And I think a big part of leadership, I always say, is servitude leadership, where yes, people work for me, but I also work for them. And a big part of that is making sure that, everybody has what they need to be successful. And, I always said that I want people to, follow me for, the person I am, and not the title. And I think that's important. So I try to really invest in everybody that does work for me. But he really taught me just patience, and kind of living in the present, and just the small details, which are really important.
So, Chris, do you think it's three service dogs that you've had, work dogs, right? And they've all got cancer. So, how, when you hear the word cancer, does it affect you emotionally? Does it affect your outlook on life? Like,
It's tough because not only have I lost, my three dogs. My mom is a two-time cancer survivor, and I just lost my dad about a couple months ago to cancer. But the beautiful story about this with my dad, and I talked about in the beginning of this interview, how my dad left when I was young, and my dad was in and out of my life. Well, two stories to that, and I'll get to the ending part first. But on my 18th birthday, my dad had gotten me tickets to. I live in Baltimore, right outside of Baltimore, to Cal Ripken's record-breaking game, and I thought it was going to be this great bonding moment, with my dad. And my dad ended up not showing up, and it broke my heart. And I lived with that trauma for years, right? So fast forward to last year, Tambo going through his cancer battle, getting a lot of recognition. Baltimore Orioles call my hometown team. They want to honor Tambo, so we go out. I have my son with me. They bring us out, third inning on the left field perch. Have us on the big screen. Start honoring Tambo, and I look down and I see my son, and he's smiling at me. And in that moment, that healed that trauma from 20 some years ago, with my dad, of not having that moment at that Oriole game with my dad. So here's this dog is healing me, from that moment, and I was able to let that pain go. And then fast forward to this year, again, my dad's in and out of my life. He calls me, tells me he has cancer, and my dad and I have never been able to connect. But something strange happened. My dad started connecting with me through Tambo, because Tambo was going through chemo, and started asking me about Tambo's chemo and Tambo's fight, and wanting one of Tambo's shirts. And my dad really started opening up. And I went out and visited him in Florida. I brought my son. I got to see my son with my dad, and see my dad give my son affection. And in a way, it healed the little boy inside of me that never got that. But I also got the closure with my dad that I never got, in my life, where he told me he was proud of me, and I told him I forgave him. And shortly after that trip, I would say within a week, my dad died. And but if it wasn't the crazy thing is, if it wasn't for Tambo, I wouldn't have been healed from that moment of the pain of that game, or I wouldn't have probably reconnected with my dad. So, the spine of this story with a lot of this stuff is this dog, but there's so many beautiful stories that have developed, because of him, and that's just the shows the power of what animals can have on people.
well, they bring that full circle, right?
Yeah, yeah, it was just amazing. When I look back on it, I was just like, wow, this is just, an amazing thing. It's going on. It's funny how other things work. Is like, was getting his chemo right outside of Philadelphia. I would drive, an hour and a half, because I wanted to find a good oncologist. So it was right outside of Philly, and I was really leaning into the during the documentation on Instagram of the Rocky mantra, right? And being the Philadelphia fighter, and then the Philadelphia Eagles call, and they want to honor him on Sunday Night Football. So we get into Philly, and the first thing we did the morning of is we ran the Rocky Steps, and so symbolic of two fighters going up these steps, just like Rocky did. And we got great pictures that are on my Instagram. And then the night of the game, they bring us out on the field at the first time out in the first quarter, and they talk about Tambo's career and then his cancer battle, and we get a standing ovation from 60,000 people, which, gave me goosebumps because I'm like, wow, here's two underdogs really that weren't supposed to amount to much standing on the field on a national event on Sunday Night Football. And then they said Tambo was a Philadelphia fighter through and through. And it's just crazy how everything kind of aligned with, I'm doing this Rocky thing, and then all of a sudden the Eagles call, and we're in Philly, and where Rocky was born, and we're running the Rocky steps. And there's so many things that have just really just, I think something higher is working with all of this, because it's just surreal. And that's what kind of, prompted me to write the memoir, and kind of tell that full story.
Well, let's talk about that memoir because you have released a book a week ago, so I didn't do enough homework on Chris. And Chris, if you'd like to just share that book.
Yeah, it's Defying the Odds, the canine Tambo story. And again, the spine of the story is Tambo, but it talks about, all the beautiful stories that came, because of Tambo. It talks about, early on, getting onto canine, and losing my first two dogs, and going through a depression, losing a mentor early on, and meeting Tambo, and our bonding time, and then Tambo going through his cancer process, and then ultimately, Tambo leading me back to my dad, at the end. The book has already hit, within a day and a half. It hit an Amazon bestseller already, so the it's doing amazing, right now, and I couldn't be happier with it. And the main thing behind of writing the book, if you'd asked me, 2 years ago if I'd write a book, I'd tell you were crazy. But this thing just kind of happened organically, and I really just wanted to share this story with the world, because I think it's important in a world that sometimes is full of chaos, that I want to show that how powerful hope is, right? And hope can trump anything. You can throw out numbers, you can give people timelines, but when you have hope, that's when miracles happen.
Absolutely. Well, that kind of goes into the question that comes in from Thrive Show. What helped you keep hope alive when the odds seem so difficult?
It's tough. It's staying positive, and a lot of that was, for years I talked about, in the book and in other interviews. Tambo's been there through me, through the birth of my son, the death of my father, through all the hard times in my life. Sometimes those nights alone at 10, 11 o'clock at night, when you're sitting there and you're going through stuff, and it's that silent present, that security blanket. So when Tambo was dying, um, for the first time in my life, I saw fear in his eyes, and I said, "This is this is my time to be here for him. He needs me now, right? And as he's been there for me for, working for 7.5 years, it's my time to be there for him. So I've always tried to remain, positive, and for him. And I truly believe, someone said to me the other day that, don't sell yourself short, because your positivity has also kept Tambo going. And what I think is, like, there's times when he struggles, and when he struggles, that's my time to breathe life back into him, and we kind of, feed off each other. And he needs that positivity, right? And it'd be easy for me to say, woe is me, I've lost, two other dogs, and just be pissed off and upset. But this is something bigger than that. He needs me, and he's been there for me. So I try not to lose focus of that. I do have my moments where, I try to go work out, or have my, alone time, but I try to always be positive around Tambo. And I can tell you, with anything in life, even not just with dogs, but with humans, positivity is everything. And I have this meme that I always look at. It's a guy on a subway, or like the subway bus, and he's kind of sitting in the middle. And on one side is like this stormy, this real gloomy side, and the other is all this sunshine and rainbows. And the purpose of the meme is, life is what side you choose to sit on, right? And you can always look at something and find the negatives, but the other thing is, you can always look at something and find the positives. And I try to do that, and I try to find the positives in everything that we do. And that's one of the things that he's really taught me to be better at, as we move forward with this journey.
Do you find yourself turning to humor, Chris, when it gets too heavy?
Yeah, yeah. Humor is always good, and it's always like, one of the things that I did when I was documenting his chemotherapy. I didn't want it to be all gloom and doom, like, hey, I'm taking my dog for, for chemo. So I started doing these little skits. I did one where him and I had John Cena t-shirts on, and he came out to the John Cena theme, and I had the Never Give Up towel, and then I did a Rocky one where I put him in a boxing outfit, and I played There's No Easy Way Out, and he came out the door like he was entering the ring, and then I put sunglasses on him. So I try to find the light in some of that to also make people smile, because here's the deal. Life is hard, and sometimes we're going to go through a cycle where it's going to be very hard for a long time, but we got to find some happiness in between there. We got to find some time to laugh and to smile, and that's the again that's the key with everything, and that's the key with never giving up, and that mentality is not letting that beat you down where you can't get up. And that's where I've really, again, leaned into the Rocky theme. And we just the first 9 line apparel t-shirt I did with Tambo was called One More Round. And when you feel like quitting, and you feel like you can't get up, you still have one more round in you. And those shirts sold great through 9 line, but it was a great mantra to kind of have for Tambo.
Does Tambo have a favorite song?
Um, so he loves, it's funny because now that I'm a dad, it's like I have all the Moana songs or the Wiggles, and it's like I think he's starting to enjoy it. And my mom is here a lot, and it's funny because today, like, every time I have to ask her what the name of the soap opera is, but every time she turns on this soap opera, this is really hilarious. He like howls, and it's like this intro to the soap opera. I'm like, what is he howling at? She's like, it's my soap opera. And then she's like, I don't know if he doesn't like it, but it's the weirdest thing. But Tambo, that's the one of the things with Tambo. He's a very quirky dog, but that's what's always kind of endeared me to him.
I wonder what's the. I wonder if it's Days of Our Lives because we had Teo on from Days of
it,
Our
it,
Lives.
it might. I'm thinking it may be Days of Our Lives, but whenever this song comes on, he's like goes nuts, and I don't know what. I mean, it's the weirdest thing, but it's like it cracks me up.
Whoa. We have a question here from Dawn, and it is: how has sharing Tambu's journey publicly changed your own perspective on what is means to serve and sacrifice?
I tell you, it was hard for me to initially peel back the curtain, because I'm a very private person, but I felt like, okay, I'm gonna share this journey because I really wanted to show what these working dog initially what these working dogs go through in retirement, that once their career is over, that it doesn't stop there. They still have life to give, and they still have something to offer. And I think throughout of it, again, it's hard for me sometimes to talk about like personal things, but I think the bigger thing, and talking about sacrificing and serving, is that I have a good message to offer people. I've been through a lot in my life, and I think especially for guys in law enforcement or anybody going through something, that to let them know that it's okay to not be okay, that we all go through things, and we're all vulnerable, and we're all going to deal with things. And I think sometimes being able to put my own stuff aside of not wanting to share, but and opening up and sharing, helping other people, and I've found a lot of happiness in being able to do that.
We have another question from Russ, and it's: what do you hope children take away from the K9 Tambu after reading the story?
I really just want them to see, to not, when they're feeling scared or they're feeling overwhelmed, that they can find that happiness, and to not give up, right? And to get them to understand that at a young age, and to have hope. And I know for me, as not having my dad around, I struggled with a lot of that, and scared a lot about things. And I wanted to show, Tambo is kind of a hero, that for children, and to show that even though he's sick, he's going to continue to get up every day. And then in the book, he's back riding in the car with me, and he's happy again. And the children are all, we're sending him get well cards and everything. So just to see that the beauty in things, and the happiness in things, and just to never give up. And things are going to be a little scary, and as we all know, as we start getting adults, things get harder. But I think if we can instill some of that happiness and hope in children at a young age, and maybe that'll help them a little more, as they get older.
Absolutely. Well, the Banter Show has a question. What inspired you to become involved with Project K9 Hero and advocate for retired working dogs?
Gosh, Project Canine Hero has really been a lifesaver. So I met the CEO, Jason Johnson, in 2018 at a canine conference, and Jason was telling me about the mission of Project Canine and here and what they do. And and for those that don't know, they're a national nonprofit. I talked about a little bit earlier, but that provide medical care for dogs for life that are in need. So Jason takes in, 50, I think it's about 52 dogs a year. And he once they're in the program, their medical care is taken care of for life. So he has dogs in the program with cancer that have been shot, stabbed, you name it, and he's saved their lives. So um, Jason, the first time Project Canine Hero came into our life was, I didn't talk about it, but Tambo, shortly after retiring, tore both of his ACLs, chasing a squirrel in the yard, and pulled up lame, and we could barely walk. And I remember I took him to the orthopedic, and they told me, look, he not only tore one, but when dogs tear one, they're prone to tearing the other ACL. And oh, by the way, each surgery is going to be about $7,500, and I was willing to pay it, of course. And but I called Jason up, and Jason had recently helped another dog on our unit that had cancer, and Jason and I had become friends. And Jason got Tambo right into the program, and funded the first TPLO surgery for Tambo, and then lucky enough, he didn't need the surgery on the second leg; that it was stable enough. So that was the first time they helped us, and then just taking care of all the vet bills, after that, and then once the cancer diagnosis happened, they funded the $10,000 emergency surgery, and they funded his full chemo and rehab, and each chemo session's been about $700. So Jason and I were talking the other day, and I think now they've funded about 35,000 to Tambo's care since this all started.
Wow. That
Yeah,
you know, and you said that that all goes on to the handler. So
yeah,
the
yeah.
government
So
doesn't pay any of this?
no, and that's not the fault of any of the departments. There's just nothing. There's nothing set up, and the departments do everything they can to provide stuff for the dogs. But once they retire, it's a great moment because the dog is actually officially yours and not government property anymore. However, the burden of cost falls on the handler. So and that's why I said, if a handler, they say, okay, your dog has cancer, but we can do some things, but this is going to cost $12,000, and this say it's a young handler, they don't have that money. What do they do? And for years, that was the case. For my first two dogs, I drained both of my bank accounts because there wasn't programs like that trying to help them with chemotherapy and cancer treatments, and there wasn't a dime I wouldn't pay for my dogs. But some people get in a real predicament, and that's why I said that you should never have to make a decision on a dog that served our country and community, based on finances. But one of the cool things that Jason is doing through Project Canine Hero is he's got a bill that he's lobbying through Congress to get passed to provide budgets to provide care for, it's called the Canine Hero Act, and you can find more information on that at projectcaninehero.org. But to set up a program where care is divvied out to, money's divvied out to some of these programs to provide care for these dogs in retirement and provide more funding.
Well, can you tell us a little bit more about Defying the Odds? Well, let's pull that book up back up again because that was just it comes out. Tell us about the cover, how long it took you to write that book, all that good stuff.
It started out, again, didn't set out to write the book. I was kind of journaling a lot, and I was journaling a lot for my son. I had watched it's funny, I watched the TV show a while back. It was Sons of Anarchy. I know it's kind of a crazy show, but Jax Teller, had his son, and one of the things he always did is he wrote to his son in a journal. And me being an older dad, I wanted my son to to know the highs and lows of my life, and I wanted him to learn resilience. So I just started talking about, my journey and Tambo's journey. And then one day I was like, maybe I could put this into a story. And I kind of took all the notes from my journal, and I wrote it within probably 6 months, which is kind of crazy. But I was telling my mom the other day, she was saying it's so quick, but I was like, yeah, but it was real. I knew how the story was going to go. Everything that happened in that book is 100% accurate and true. And once I started writing it, I really, I couldn't stop. I talked a little bit in there about the birth of my son. My son kind of came out a fight or two. They said he had a heart condition, before he was born, and that kind of magnificently, healed on itself. He was born at John Hopkins, and it just healed. And we did IVF treatment, and they didn't think that the embryo was going to take, and then all of a sudden the numbers kept going up, and there my son was. He was coming out a fighter, just like Tambo and I was. And so it's kind of strange how all this was happening parallel to my life and Tambo's life. And then my son came out fighting. And throughout all this, Tambo's fight, and again, people can give you expiration dates. They can label you something. They can tell you you're not able to do this or that. But at the end of the day, again, that's where hope comes in, right? And positivity, and that trumps all of that. And that's defying the odds. And that's what Tambo and I have proven. When you have that mentality, when you have that positivity, that beautiful things can happen.
Well, Chris, how has becoming a father changed your leadership and mentorship for you?
It's been the most it's he's everything to my son, is everything to me. I was always loved children. I've had nephews, but becoming a father, you really understand what it means for the love of a child. And becoming a dad, and not realizing, or realizing what I didn't get from my dad. I wanted to make sure that my son had all of that. And that's again why I journal, to make sure that he knows that his dad, continued to fight and continue to stay positive. And one of the things, that the last thing that my dad said to me before he passed away is make sure that my son gets what him and I never got. And because his dad was the same way. So it's making sure that he gets everything, and gets the love and everything that I didn't get. And there's nothing greater, to enjoy, than to come home every day after a stressful day, and to see my son, and to hear him say daddy. And that just lights up my whole world, and just takes anything negative away.
Well, it's breaking that generational cycle, right?
Yep. Yeah, but it's funny, for years my dad would watch the movie. I'd see him watch the movie Field of Dreams, and at the end, when he has the catch with his dad, my dad would always tear up, and I never understood why. And now, 2 years later, and I talk about it in the book, I realize it's my dad was seeing what he never got with his dad, and then somehow he turned into his father. And the fear was that I would be the same way, and that was never going to happen. For me, is that I knew, once I became a dad, that cycle was going to break right then and there.
Well, Chris, what message would you like to leave with first responders or every family facing difficult circumstances to hear today?
That life is challenging. It's going to hit us when we least expect it, and it's going to be hard. And the one thing I tell people is, sometimes you feel like your story is ending, and this is the end, and I can't go on anymore. And what I tell people is, when you feel that way, that's when your story's beginning. That's when it's starting. That's when the comeback is starting. That's where everything starts to get better, right? And that's the mentality that I want, people to have, is that there you can always find the light in the darkest of time, and that you just have to continue to. And it's like that meme I said, you have to continue to choose of what side of that subway you want to sit on, right? And choosing life every day, and living in the present. And when you do that, things get easier, and you're not going to heal it overnight, but step by step, things will get better. And you just have to continue to have that hope and not give up.
So, Chris, is there like a group of handlers that get together every year? Like, do you guys have a reunion? Like, do you get to meet the other dogs that are out there? Like, is there
I,
any of that?
I tell you, through Project Canine here, I've met some amazing people, some of the best handlers around. I've made some great friends, and obviously, the people that I came up with on my own unit, I still talk to them, and we still share stories about our dogs and stuff, because each of my dogs have had their own quirky personalities and have done funny things, and it's always great to sit back and think about all the stories with all your dogs and everything.
So, Chris, could you share a quirky thing that Tambu does?
So so our first time together, we had an assignment, and we were out of town, and this first time Tambo was in a hotel. So we were still in that bonding process, and I talk about this in the book. So I fell asleep on the bed with my laptop, and I woke up to this scratching sound, and Tambo had gotten on the bed, the first time he's ever been in a bed, and he was like fluffing it up to get comfortable. And I opened my eyes, and I was like this, and his eyes were like this, and we looked at each other like two teenagers, and he like leaped up like a trampoline, and then darted off and ran into his kennel. And I was like, "It's all right, buddy. You can come back into bed." And normally I would not say to let a newer dog into bed, but this was a different circumstance, and he didn't come in. But then I fell asleep, and then 2 a.m. I woke up, and he was curled up at the end of the bed, and like for the first time, I saw that he was really, at peace and happy. But he'll do these just quirky things where all of a sudden he'll sniff something, or a leaf will fall off this big bad police dog, a leaf will fall off a tree, and he'll leap up like it's like and he tore his ACL. When I talk his ACLs chasing a squirrel, and I talk about it in the book. I named this squirrel George, and it was like a modern day Tom and Jerry, because this squirrel would torment Tambo in retirement, where he would come up to the porch, and then Tambo would run and chase him, and was never going to catch this squirrel. And the one day, Tambo decided to leap off the top steps, and that's when he tore both of his ACLs. But the squirrel is still around, and Tambo still wants to chase it. But I told him his days of chasing squirrels are over at this point.
Well, Chris, I'm going to pull up the logo so for everybody that can see. How did is this Tambu in the image, and who drew this
For the which is it?
for the logo? Can you see the logo on the screen?
I can't see it.
Oh, you don't see the black logo that you sent me?
Oh yeah, that is Tambo in the picture. Yeah, that's the logo that I've been using. And while I have everybody on here, I wanted to ask everybody's help. Tambo is a semi-finalist for the American Humane Hero Dog Award. He's in the military category. So if you go on to the American Humane and look up here, or American Humane Hero Dogs, you can vote for Tambo. The voting goes on until September 18th. You can vote every 24 hours. If Tambo wins his category, they'll bring us on. I think it's the whatever the show is in the morning with Al Roker. I don't know if that's the Today Show or one of those. They bring you on there, and then he wins his category, and then he goes against five other dogs for the overall winner. But I would just be happy if he was voted in his category the hero dog of the year, and I can't think of a better way to honor him with everything he's going through. And this will probably be, just to be honest, this will probably be our last chance
Yeah.
to compete for this award. And I want nothing more than to be able to send him out. He'll always be a hero, but to be able to do this, and then for me to be able to share his story on a national platform would mean a lot for me.
And Chris, if they go to the website that I have showed, can they find more on Tambu's story?
Yeah, yeah. So if you go on to, you can look up on my Instagram, which is the letter K, the number 9 underscore Tambo. And then also you can go on to Project Canine Heroes website, and they have some more information on Tambo. And then if you go on to the American Humane and then the Hero Dog Awards, you can see the Tambo in the military category, and get a little bit about more about his story. But I have a lot of information on my Instagram as well, and you can also, obviously, through like interviews like this, you can learn the story, and then through the book and everything as well.
Well, we have a question here from Francis, and it's looking back now. What is the single greatest lesson Tambu has given you?
That there's and it's going to sound cliche as is, but there's always hope, and to not give up, and how powerful a bond can be, and love, right? And the bond we have is so deep. And I thought, my first two dogs, after having them, I never thought that I would bond with another dog like I have with them. But Tambo's trumped all of that. When we went to chemo yesterday, he knew the deal, and he doesn't like going in there. So when they come back to take him back, he puts all four of his paws down and doesn't want to go, and I have to walk him back to that long hallway through those double doors. And one of the things that I talked about is it's like our, leaning into that Rocky mantra. That's our fight walk, right? That's our walk to the ring. And I'm like, he's Rocky, and I'm like Mickey and Apollo, and I'm walking him down. I'm encouraging him down that long hallway as he heads through those double doors to get his chemotherapy, which is painful. I mean, it's not painful when he gets it, but he knows he's going to get sick afterwards. But he still chooses to do that. So just the love that we have for each other, and the bond. It's a beautiful thing, and he's just taught me that hope is real. He's just reinvigorated that with me, and that anything is possible, and never give up.
And Chris, if Tambu could leave the world with one lesson, what do you think it would be?
Is to choose happiness, right? Because he gets up every day. He's 12 years old. He's got really bad arthritis. He's got terminal cancer, but he gets up every day and he chooses life. He just before we came on, you saw him. He was on the couch chewing his little bone. He likes to still play with his ball. He likes to enjoy time with my son. He's not moving like he used to, but he's happy. He likes, you know, um, seeing what I have for dinner every night, and hoping he's going to get some leftovers. Hunting for snacks now, and taking long naps, and going for car rides. That's happiness. And this dog is going through. He has terminal cancer, but he gets up every day and he chooses happiness. So for all of us, we're going to be going through stuff, but we can still find happiness. It's what we choose to do every day when we get up. And I think that's what resonated with so many people with Tambo, is how he lives his life, right? It's the simplicity of it. And I just think it's motivated a lot of people, and to see things from a different perspective.
Well, the tea that you gave me, Chris, was resilience, loyalty, and second chances. Let's talk about second chances really quick before we wrap up.
That, yeah, and second chances, and I talk about that, like, with um you think about Tambo from the beginning, is that um people wanted to give up on him, right? And he just needed someone to take a chance on him. People wanted to give up on me my whole life. From the start, my dad left. The odds were already stacked against me. People didn't think, they wanted to label me different things, and but second chances are about not being labeled whatever other people want to define you as, and continue to pursue something, or even when you get rejected for something, that you keep coming back, and you keep moving forward with your goals. And second chances is what I got with my dad, right? I could have left that as is, but I got a second chance to build that relationship, and to get that closure that I needed. With my dad, resilience is continuing to get back up when life knocks you down, and loyalty is staying true to the people that you love and love you through their hardest times, right? It's easy when people go through something to say, I can't deal with this. This is too much. This is too traumatic for me. But taking the selfishness out of it, and being unselfish, and focusing on them, and looking at things from their perspective.
Well, Chris, what is your final message to the listeners tonight?
Again, is that life is going to be challenging, and we have to hit it head on, and that you have to find your why with everything. And we just did a it's funny, we just did a new 9 line shirt that just came out. It's available now on not the 9 line website. It's running for 2 weeks, but this one's called the final bell. And I don't mean that it's the ending, but when you get to those hardest rounds, those final rounds, is you have to remember why you're fighting and what's important to you, right? And that's that never give up mentality. But you have to know that why when things get hard is, why am I doing this? Remembering why I'm doing this, and always having that, in the back of your head, and continue to push forward, is like, because there's always going to be something beautiful at the end of that. But when you get to those final rounds and that final bell's about to ring, that's when you really need to have that hope and that positivity.
Well, thank you so much, Chris, for sitting with me and for Tambu to join us for a little bit.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed tonight's conversation. I really enjoyed everybody jumping in and sending your questions in, because I could not do this without you guys. It's teamwork. We all work together with this tea time. We're just going to do a quick recap of what tonight's tea time is, and we'll be back on Thursday with the final two for August. And September's lineup will be out either tonight or tomorrow. And we have 22 incredible guests that are coming in September, so stay tuned for that. What a powerful and unforgettable conversation we have shared tonight. Chris, thank you for bringing your honesty, dedication, and heart to the tea time table, and for allowing us to learn more about your extraordinary partner who has walked beside you through so much, Tambu. Tonight's conversation reminded us that some of our greatest teachers never speak a word. They teach through loyalty, through trust, through service, and through presence, and sometimes through an extraordinary determination to keep going when the odds say otherwise. Your partnership with Tambu shows us that the relationship between a canine handler and working dogs goes far beyond commands and training. It becomes trust without hesitation, communication without words, a partnership built through thousands of moments when each depends on the other. Then came Tambu's cancer diagnosis. What could have become simply a story of illness became something much greater, a story of resilience, a story of courage, a story of refusing to surrender before life has finished being lived. Through K9, Tambu, your advocacy, and the developing memoir, Defying the Odds, you are preserving that story while also shining a light on the thousands of working dogs whose service deserves recognition long after their final shift. One of today's greatest takeaways is this: never quit. That never quit does not mean we never become tired, afraid, or uncertain. It means that while there is still something worth fighting for, we find the courage to keep showing up. Chris, your journey also reminds us that service does not end when the uniform comes off or when a working dog retires. Those who serve carries their experience with them. They deserve dignity, they deserve care, and they deserve people willing to stand beside them without their service is complete. As we close tonight's tea time, I'd like to leave everyone with this thought. Who has stood beside you through the moments when giving up would have been easier? And have you ever stopped to tell them what their loyalty meant to you? Sometimes courage is individual. Sometimes courage is borrowed from the one standing beside us. Chris, thank you for sharing your story, your advocacy for retired working dogs, and for Bamboo that strength cannot always be measured by size, diagnosis, or circumstances. And Tambu, thank you for reminding all of us what loyalty, service, and determination looks like, with four paws and one enormous heart. Until next time, continue honoring those who serve, continue standing beside the ones who need us, and continue serving real life truth, awareness, and experience, one courageous story at a time. And tonight's takeaway from Miss Liz is: some heroes wear uniforms, some wear badges, some wear collars. The greatest ones teach us the same lesson. Courage is continuing to show up with loyalty, purpose, and heart, even when the odds are stacked against us. Never quit before your story is finished. And I'll see everybody on Thursday, and we'll do this all over again.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, Chris.